Going to the phones, welcoming in John Kincade, host of Buck and Kincade on 680 down there in Atlanta, also of the John Kincade Show on CBS Sports Radio. John, appreciate you making some time for us this morning, man.
I was watching you guys online earlier and checking out some of the live feed, too. Just I like to do that before coming on with the show and everything like that. I said, that's good that you guys being able to connect, people being able to see you like that. It really does. I think it's good for people in the morning to make a little connection with the audience. I think it's nice.
Yeah, it's a live video is definitely an aspect with technology and stuff that we've really appreciated. I know our listeners have appreciated. John, just kind of listening to what we were talking about earlier, some of the aspects of just this upcoming college football season and stuff, it seems like that certain people want players to touch on social issues, political issues. But when it comes to voicing their opinion about whether or not they should be allowed to play this year, they want them to remain silent and their opinion doesn't matter. Why do you think that's the case when it comes to this college football season?
I think it's one thing is that I have a 16-year-old myself, and she'll be a junior in high school this year. And I think that a lot of times adults fall into the mindset of, well, we know better. We know better. We want you to be independent. We want you to be young adults. We want you to make decisions for yourself. But if we think we know better, we want to tell you exactly what you're doing. Now, on this thing, you just listen to us because we're smarter. The problem is with this virus, I can tell you this, nobody I've met in the sports media is smart enough to be able to determine heads up, and that includes myself, yes, no, maybe so, what this virus is all about. And so to me, this is something where I'm very confused as to why so many media members had such strong opinions on it when the CDC and local health officials decided that they would, let these kids come back to school, let these kids come back to campus, that they were, that now they know better than the health officials. It doesn't make any sense to me.
And when it comes to that, I know that there's been multiple people, whether it's Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Ian Book, and I know your partner, Shaquille O'Neal, who you do a podcast with, also voiced the opinion of we want players to play. When people criticize athletes, current or former, why is that even seem to be more and there seems to be more animosity there when people get mad at current athletes and former athletes wanting and advocating for players to play this year?
Well, I really think it comes down to this entire story of this pandemic. And I believe that there have been people who have been it's very tribal. It's very much, I'm in this camp, I'm in that camp. This is the worst thing to ever happen to us. People are going to be dying in the streets. It's terrible. Or the people there are also people on the other end who are like, this is no big deal. We should just go about normal life. And then I think around 70% of Americans fall in the middle. Maybe 60% fall in the middle, and they don't fall into one of those extreme camps. But the problem is that so many media members have been dug in on whatever side of the argument that they are on, that they just want to be right. Yeah. What they've been saying since February, since March, since April, they just want to be right. They did, baseball's not going to be able to work. They're not in a bubble. This is going to fall apart. It's going to be terrible. It hasn't. NBA and NHL. Well, they can try to do this bubble thing, but it's crazy. They've tried, and it's been excellent. There are a lot of people who just want to be right. They've been telling you that this boogeyman virus is out there, and it's going to destroy the world, and it's going to destroy lives everywhere it touches. And, hey, it has been ugly, but it is most certainly somewhere in the middle between the two camps. There's that Clay Travis, this is nothing, do whatever you want camp, and then there is the camp that is telling you, more the Pat Forty camp telling you, this is the worst thing in the world. Nobody should be out of their houses for another 3 months.
Yeah, you got to ask yourself: are you trying to be right or get it right? When you're
exactly.
looking at, which one are you trying to accomplish here? Are you trying to win the argument or just get the facts?
And what's funny is, Tom, is that I was told early on in my career, like a program director, Mike Thompson, one of the legendary program directors in sports radio, to say to me, it is not so important that you be right. You're going to be wrong. You're going to be wrong all the time. Just accept that you're wrong. Accept that you get things wrong. And when you accept that you're wrong and you tell the audience that you're wrong, and you become bulletproof because you're not somebody who is acting like you're a know-it-all. Someone who's acting like you never get anything wrong. Share with the audience. Be the one to tell the audience that you got it wrong. Don't wait for freezing cold takes to expose you. Be the one. Be transparent. And I think there's a lot of people who have just been very fearful of the virus. I shouldn't say fearful, maybe overly cautious of the virus. And they very much have been preaching gloom and doom, and they just can't believe that we're going forward with things. And by the way, we're going forward with things, and they've been really highly successful. They haven't just been successful. They've been highly successful getting things. No positive test in the NBA. No positive test in the NHL. The baseball team, if you have the Marlins do what they're supposed to and the Cardinals do what they're supposed to, we've got no problems. Major League Baseball is humming along, like purring along at 90 miles an hour in a 70 zone. But we got a couple teams that tried to screw things up for everybody.
Yeah. John, what's your opinion on the news cycle from the weekend? You know, these conferences announced they were going to play, 10 or 11 game schedules. Then the Big Ten, the SEC, others came out with actual schedules. And then seemingly nothing occurred, no big headlines, nothing occurred with teams. And then all of a sudden over the weekend, the sky was falling. We're going to have to cancel the season. Presidents and chancellors are meeting to hold this apocalyptic vote. What do you read into this news? What happened over the weekend to lead us to what seems to be a big meeting today?
Now, look, I am I'm a graduate I'm Temple University in Philadelphia, so I'm a non-Power 5 football fan, but I also obviously have been in SEC country for 25 years, so I know all the cultures. When the MAC got canceled on Saturday, I was so surprised that so many people around the country were like, well, next SEC will go, Big Ten will go, then the Pac-12 will go, the ACC will go, because everybody that I had talked to within Southern football, every connection I had, was telling me they're not even close to thinking about cutting this thing out or not trying it. And I was very, very surprised. And I really believe media gets used sometimes. If they allow themselves to get used, they get used. And I believe they got used on this weekend. I think they got used I think the Big Ten floated a trial balloon. And I really do. I think they voted they had, hey, like you would in a jury room. Okay, everybody, what are we feeling right now? If I was to ask you to vote, what would you say? Okay, 12-2, I think I'd cancel. Okay, we got 2 holdouts. And then they float the trial balloon. The vote meant nothing. It was just a vote that they were just trying to gauge the room. But that gets leaked to the media, and then that causes the players to get involved. That causes coaches to get involved, ADs to speak out. And to me, I think it was all a public trial balloon to say, okay, what is the reaction going to be here? And I can tell you from my phone ringing off the hook yesterday that from what I've been told, and we've got connections through our station with a lot of the local programs that we're the ones that touch, just even our listening audience with Clemson and Alabama and Auburn and Georgia. And it was clear that many big money donors in the South, I think, were letting their opinions be known to presidents, not only to athletic directors, but to presidents, to say, hey, part of the reason that I give you that big check is because, my family's so involved with the athletic program and everything, and I know it benefits other parts of the school, my gift to the school, and on top of that and everything. And I honestly think some of these presidents are going to end up being blackmailed into doing what I believe is the right thing. Yeah. I've never lived in a country and I've never been part of a country that doesn't try. It's okay to fail. I tell my own child that. I've lived that way in my own life. I'm going to try something, and if it fails, we tried it all the time on the radio over the years. It's okay to have a segment that bombs. It's okay to have try to do something on the show that bombs. Sometimes it becomes funny, and it actually is better for the show. But it's okay to fail. And I think a lot of people in life are afraid to fail. They're afraid to do something and fall flat on their face, when in reality, that is the best way we learn and the best way that we grow forward. And so I think there's a lot of presidents who are afraid to fail.
A lot of times the answer is obvious because, well, it's obvious, and right now the Big Ten is scheduled to start the season Labor Day weekend with some flexibility to move it back a week, but the SEC sitting here with a September 26th start date. There's word that's one of the options that they're going to vote on is to move it back a few weeks to kind of line up with the SEC. To me, that's just more common sense than just, pulling the plug and pulling the rug out from under the whole season right now. I mean, to me, that seems to be the common sense approach because, John, once you cancel the season, there's no going back on that.
Exactly. And more importantly, because then you free up all the hotel rooms, you free up the for the travel, you free up all those plans, you free up stadiums. It doesn't make any sense. And more importantly, Greg Sankey has shown tremendous leadership in this entire thing. And by being the one who moved back to late September, the day that they announced it, my initial reaction was, why are they pushing it back? Why would they wait till late September? But I think what they're also seeing is, and I think what Greg Sankey and the medical officials that he spoke to is Florida is plateauing, Georgia plateauing, that they're saying, hey, if I have 6 more weeks till I have to play football, I've got plenty of time for this thing to calm down and for just the social discussion of this virus to calm down quite a bit. Plus, give time for kids to get back on campus. Get them back on campus. See how they are. See how they're reacting. See if and by the way, too, remember the screaming headlines of Clemson: 32 players test positive. Texas: 30-plus players. LSU: 30-plus players. They never wrote the follow-up story. Whether it's ESPN, CBS, whoever it is, they never wrote the follow-up headline to say, wow, Clemson players all back. Texas players all back. Every one of them A-OK. They didn't write those stories, and that's where I think there's been a purposeful agenda in the media coverage. Because if you write that screaming headline that seems scary and bloody and, oh my gosh, people are going to be collapsing and dying, you better write the follow-up story that says, yeah, by the way, those 32 players, they're all okay, and they're all back practicing, and none of them are having any problems. I think that's where there's a little bit of intellectual dishonesty going on right now.
We're speaking with John Kincade here on the Morning Rush, host of Buck and Kincade on 680 The Fan in Atlanta. John, you mentioned students coming back to campus. I don't know how long it was you were at Temple University, but I can tell you from firsthand experience in Arkansas, there's a lot of parties that go on first 2 weeks of campus.
No. Wait a minute. There are parties on college campuses
It's
now?
crazy.
Yeah, they get together. They have iced tea. They talk
and
about
there's
their
guys and girls stuff going on, right?
Absolutely not.
Okay, good.
They talk about study halls and how they're going to have group studies. I mean, it's amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Prepping for syllabus week.
Chemistry
sure
labs.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
But I think you're going to be in this camp as well as I am. I would assume that while a lot of the student athletes have been following protocols and social distancing to this point, students aren't going to fall in that same suit. How much of an impact of students arriving on campus do you think could potentially affect, good or bad, this college football season?
Ty, what are you like? What are you like? 24, 25?
25.
I watched you on TV. Okay, you know better than the two of us.
Mm-hmm.
There's it's going to be moths to the flame for young men when there's now young beautiful co-eds coming back to campus. Yeah. It's human nature that there's going to be that people are going to make bad decisions. My partner Buck Bellew, national championship quarterback at Georgia, he says it all the time. He goes, you can count on a young college guy to do the right thing 9 days in a row. And 9 days in a row, he's going to do the right thing. And then on that 10th day, he may make one bad decision because the blonde winked at him in chemistry class or something. There's something. Young people make mistakes for a reason because that's how we learn. But I think it's very, very important to note, and I know that there's a lot of people now trying to do there are a lot of long-lasting effects of this virus that we don't know yet. Okay, then stay in your house. Then have all your groceries delivered. Then don't ever step out of your house. Because if you're thinking that, if you're now trying to spin that as the reason this shouldn't happen, I am totally in a contrary camp, just by an opinion, not a medical opinion, just an opinion. I teach my daughter, and I believe every day, go out and live your life. I've had cancer twice and survived it. And I truly believe I'm not going to live my life in fear. I'm going to do the proper things. I'm not going to do things that are reckless, but I'm going to do the proper things. But I'm going to live my life. I'm going to go to a restaurant. I'm going to go out in public. I'm going to travel. We traveled to Florida to the beach. We traveled to Las Vegas in July. And people were, oh, my gosh, you're going to places where it's like crazy outside. And I said, yes, and we're fine. We're fine because you do the right things and you follow the regulations that are set out. I refuse to live my life hiding under the covers. I just can't. And I don't want these college kids to either. I think that the college kids will navigate their way through this, and we have to remember, and you can just go to the CDC for this, the vast majority of young people are asymptomatic. we're talking. It's asymptomatic, and they don't seem to be super spreaders. Now that's just from CDC data. Again, not a doctor, but to me, I would feel if this was my daughter's time to go to college, I would be much more concerned about that party that you guys were talking about than I would be about her and COVID.
John, you brought up your can. I was going to touch on that, so I'm glad you brought up that because I think the living in fear aspect is an important part of just everything that's going on right now. But with these players that are wanting to play this upcoming college football season, I think they are the biggest reason that we could see college football this fall. When you have guys like Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Ian Book, these guys that are standing up and standing out and want to play this season who, Lawrence can be the number one pick. He has everything to lose. How much of an impact of them, the players themselves, coming out and voicing them wanting to play, do you think will have on us playing college football in 2020?
Well, I think it just changes the public. It changes the public discussion, and it puts we have spent an entire year in 2020 of seeing everybody celebrate the fact that young people are finding their voices and young people are speaking up. And young people are being outspoken on social issues. But now you have people trying to tell them, yeah, but on this issue, we need you to shut up. We know more than you, Trevor Lawrence. We know more than you, Justin Fields. Here's what I say. Any one of these players, it's funny, is they were like, well, they can have their parents sign a waiver. No. These guys are 18 years old. They can sign the waiver for themselves. If they decide to take this risk, they should be allowed to take this risk. Because I can tell you right now, if it was the previous generations, they could be over fighting in a war defending our country. And we wouldn't be worried about COVID killing them. We'd be worried about real things that have a high probability to take them out. But unfortunately, we've got a bunch of people who are like, no, well, we knew better. These are our kids. We know better for them. No, you don't know better. I wondered what took Trevor Lawrence and all these other big-name college athletes, what took them so long to speak up. There were when the winds were blowing that college football might never happen, I wondered what took them so long to speak up. I thought this should have been going on. If this had been going on 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think it would be a totally different story right now. And we would maybe have even seen some of a better resolution for some of these other smaller conferences too. Yeah.
Hey, before we run out of time, I want to ask you do a podcast with Shaquille O'Neal. How did that get started?
Yeah, a guy you might not know him.
Yeah, you might have heard of him.
I'm trying to raise his. He came to me and he wanted to raise his visibility because he really didn't have a lot of endorsements or anything, and he wasn't known. So I'm trying to help him.
How did that come about, and what's it like working with Shaq?
How about this? Is that he wanted to do a podcast, and this was 5 years. We're 5+ years. Most podcasts last a year, maybe. And this was over 5 years ago, and he was looking to do a podcast, but he would not tell anybody what kind of podcast he wanted to do, but he wanted to do it with somebody who had a background in broadcast. So he met and interviewed a bunch of people and couldn't find anybody he wanted to work with. And God bless Ernie Johnson Jr., who had said, well, what about John Kincade? Have you ever talked to Kincade? He goes, well, he doesn't really listen to sports radio. Shaq's a music guy. He doesn't really listen to sports radio. And he's like, yeah, he goes, I've heard him on ESPN or CBS or whatever. And he goes, yeah, and he goes, but he's here in Atlanta. So he sets me up for a meeting. And they said, well, Shaq wants to take you to dinner and talk about this project. And so, okay, so I'm getting ready to go to the dinner. And my wife goes, well, you're going to dinner with Shaq? And I said, yeah. And she goes, you think you're going to work with Shaq on this? And I said, oh, hell no. I said, well, he's never going to pick me. I said, but I'm going to tell my grandchildren that Shaq took me to dinner. And we were meeting, and within 40 minutes, he's asking me all these questions and everything. He goes, what kind of podcast do you think I should do? I said, you're not going to like my answer. And he goes, why? And I said, because I don't think you need to do, I don't want to do if you're looking to do a basketball podcast or something like that, I don't want to do it. And I probably wouldn't be good for you. But if I was telling you what to do, I would do a podcast where you were showcasing Fun Shaq, where you're playing stupid games and reacting to the stories that are big on social media, and you're talking about issues of the day, but you're talking about them in a light manner, where you're not getting, where it's feisty and contentious. You're joking around, you're laughing, and then you get your A-list guest friends, and we get them on the show. He said, "You're hired." And you know how Shaq talks, and I went, "What'd you say?" And he goes, "You're hired." let's work on a deal here. Let's figure out how we can do this, because you're the first person to tell me what I wanted to do. That's exactly what he wanted to do, and I was the first person to say it.
Man,
so that's how I got lucky
awesome
to get
story.
the job.
That's a great story.
And I can tell you this, for a 16-year-old like my daughter to have an Uncle Shaq is a pretty cool thing. It's a cool thing. We were in Vegas a couple weeks ago, and Shaq was in Vegas too. We were going to one of his restaurants for dinner on the Strip, and my daughter did not know that Shaq was in town, and he made time to come to dinner with us. And she was so excited when she saw her Uncle Shaq there, because he is one of the most beautiful people that I've ever known on the face of the earth. And he cares about people, and he connects with people in a way that is just, he's a big kid. He's a big kid with a big heart. And it's been a blessing in my life, absolutely, to get to know him and to be a part of that project.
John Kincade, host of Buck and Kincade on 680 The Fan in Atlanta, also hosts the John Kincade Show. And as he was talking about the big podcast with Shaq, the co-host there, John, we appreciate the time. I already got a couple texts in saying this is the best interview we've had in a while. And I'm not kidding. I'm literally looking at him right now. So thanks for making some time.
Well, I can say that. In parting, you guys got a great man in Sam Pittman, and we love him. We love him in Atlanta. We love him around the Bulldog program. And I wish Coach Pittman the best. He is an energizer. He is a positive force. And I hope the Hogs have a great success under him. He's a great man.
Appreciate that, John. I think Razorback fans feel the same way. Again, thanks for making.
Well, reach out again. We'll talk during and we'll talk. I think Georgia and Arkansas are going to play.
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
That kind of made some news.
We'll talk about it later on. We'll catch up again.
All right,
John, sounds
All
great.
right, guys. Nice talking to you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, good fun there with John Kincade.